In 1 Kings chapter 10, 1 Kings chapter 10, verse 7 is where we're going to get the theme of tonight and tomorrow and next week's night and the week following and so on and so forth until the series is over. The idea is the half has not been told. All right. So in 1 Kings chapter 10, verse 7, it says, "Howbeit I believed not the words until I came, and mine eyes had seen, and behold, the half was not told me. Thy wisdom and prosperity exceedeth the fame which I heard." This, of course, was the Queen of Sheba, not Bathsheba, the Queen of Sheba that came to Solomon and said, "Wow, you are impressive, and the half has not even been told. Thy wisdom and prosperity." Tonight we're going to be looking at the power of God. So the half has not been told concerning the power of God. And there were a lot of examples and a lot of ways I could take this. We could talk about the power of God in creation. In 6 literal days, God created literally everything and left everything He didn't want out. That's why it's called nothing. In the heavens, we could say God created the heavens, and we could express how God made the heavens and how the heavens sit in the span of His hand. By the way, the span of the hand is somewhere in between the pinky and the thumb. That's an anthropomorphic imagery, giving us the idea and helping us kind of understand the power and existence, the great existence of God. It's poetic in a sense, but shows just right there God has the universe, creation, earth, somewhere in there, and then you and me, somewhere in there. We could talk about the power of God in that aspect, but we won't. We could talk about the power aspect in heaven and how He declared the heavens and how the heavens declare the glory of God. But we won't talk about that. I'm just going through this ramble because I have an hour and I won't get through the whole hour unless I ask you questions. But we could also continue and talk about how God laid the 4 corners of the earth. And again, that shows the dimensions of the earth and the power of God and the beauty of creation and so forth and so forth. But again, that's what we all heard. The 6 days, heavens, the creation, all of that. We've heard that since the time we were 3, 2, and even less than 1. You've heard it, and you still hear it today. We'll talk about the power of God. We could talk about the power of God in the kingdoms of men and how He rules in the kingdoms of men. But we won't talk about that to a great extent. We'll just mention that a little bit. We'll also talk about the power of God in our daily lives. And we will talk more about this. But as we continue on, let's go and get started with the power of God. The half hath not been told concerning the power of God. If you have a handout, you can follow along. If you don't, that's fine. I won't blame you. You don't need to follow along. That's why pen and paper is invented, or just pencil. So tonight we're going to be talking about 3 things. The power of God in providence. The half has not been told about the power of God in the providence for us. We will talk about the power of God in our personal lives. That's more of an application, but really that will be more of an introspection. And then we'll talk about the power of God in our public lives. Now, there shouldn't be a difference between our public lives and our private lives or personal lives, but sometimes there are. And we'll give a little bit of a distinction between them and how we interact between them. But we'll start with the power of God in the providence. In providence. In Matthew chapter 5 and 45, we read of a situation when Jesus declares this phrase, says, "That ye may be the children of your Father, which is in heaven. For He maketh His sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth the rain on the just and the unjust." So let me go and stop right there and ask you a question, because it's an hour of Bible class, and why not? the power of God in providence. What is providence? God has opened the way for something to happen. Okay. All right. That's a good answer. Good answer. Anyone else? There's hardly a wrong answer. That's right. It's God providing for His children. If you have the piece of paper and you're kind of following along, but kind of confused where we are, it's in point B. Providence defined is timely care or preparation, economy. That kind of goes into the economy of God. He won't waste His effort. He won't waste His energy because He is God. He is perfect. He cannot waste His effort or energy. This is also prudence, foresight, or specifically, as Jason declared, the care of God for His creatures. So there are, in my estimations, and I could very well be wrong, but that's why this is Bible class and we correct each other in Bible class. But there are two kinds of providence. There's a special providence and an ordinary providence. Now, don't get it wrong. Well, let me continue speaking before I say that. There's a special providence in the sense that God takes care of Christians. He gives them a blessing, and although we seek Him first, He'll give us the necessary blessings. But then there's the ordinary blessings, which He gives to everyone, and He takes care of everyone. This is weather, the sun, the rain, the clothes on your back, the necessity that we have. God gives everyone this kind of providence. Now, it could very well be wrong. That's why Jason's here on the front row. So he'll say, "What do you talk about?" That's right. About 2 weeks in, the elders come to my office. Hey, can we talk to you? Can you leave? All right. So there are two kinds of providence in my estimation. And the reason why I say this is in Matthew chapter 6, verses 25 and onwards, it talks about how, Jesus on the mountain, He's talking about the cares, the necessities of life, and sometimes the teachings of worry. In fact, the little subtitle of this little phrase right here is the teachings on worry. In verse 25, He says, "Therefore I say unto you, take no thought of your life, what ye shall eat, or what ye shall drink, nor yet for your body, or what ye shall put on. Is not the life more than meat, and the body more than raiment? Behold the fowls of the air, for they sow, neither do they reap. They sow not, neither do they reap, nor gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feedeth them. And are ye not much better than they?" So right there, He says, okay, there's the ordinary providence. The fowls of the air, the birds, they have blessings. God gives them great blessings. But what about you, humans? God blesses us. Now, halfway throughout this, I may change that, but that's the providence of God in two senses. God cares for us. He gives us blessings, and He will take care of us. But again, the half has not been told concerning the providence of God. I should rather ask myself that question, but I'll ask y'all nonetheless. What do y'all want to get out of this lesson concerning the providence of God? All right, relating to personal life. Okay, I saw a hand. All right. Well, that's good. Yes, it is. It is real. Yes, sir. Now, let's just say if, providence of God is not real, what would we be seeing happening all around us? Yes, what would we be seeing all around us if the providence of God was not real or is not real? This is hypothetical. By chance, you could say that. It would be chaos, and you'd see God reaching down and saying, okay, I'm helping you. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And that's a very encouraging thought for us today, and especially those in the first century when people were knocking on the door and saying, hey, you're coming with me in prison, and the like of which. But again, the providence of God, the power of God seen through providence. God will take care of his own. God will take care of his own and always does. In Romans, Yes.
If God's providence wasn't here, he said that he causes the rain to fall on just and unjust, the sun to rise, set, just and unjust. That would imply then that that's the providence of God, which means that if we didn't have his providence, we wouldn't have all those things. We wouldn't have even our own existence. Because in provisions, what he's created, he not only created everything, but he created the cycles and laws to help take care of his creation. He doesn't even have to be involved. It's still a providence that he's created.
That's a good point. And as we go back to, the definition of providence, it's a timely care or preparation. So if y'all didn't hear what Jason said, let me see if I can say it back right. That's right. Well, if God wasn't here, we wouldn't be around. We wouldn't exist. Let's say it plainly. All right. So if God wasn't here, we wouldn't exist naturally. But if God didn't give us the providence, we would not be here. And that's right. It wouldn't work the way it does. Sorry, I forgot something. Axis. That's right. It's a good thought. Good thought. Good statement, too. Thank you. All right. As we continue on, God is no respecter of persons. This is true in the case of salvation. It is also true in the case of blessings. God will give everyone who seeks him a blessing. God will give everyone the blessing of the sun, rain, and stars. God is no respecter of persons and food and weather and necessities. I made a point here, and that's okay if you don't agree with it. I may not. I'll just go and read it. However, God is a respecter of those who follow him. So in a sense, he is a respecter of persons. Now, I'm not trying to be contradictory to what the Bible says. God is no respecter of persons in the sense of salvation and everyday blessings. But if it's not really a respecter of persons now that I think about it. I should stop voicing my thoughts.
That's a good discussion because I was thinking about that because one of the big questions to ask is if God is not a respecter of persons, then why does he respect people who follow him and save them? I think that's where you're going with that.
Yes.
And it's a valid question, but it's one that helps us understand what it means by respect of persons. God doesn't so special. It's that we decided to obey and have faith in him. That's the reason he shows us any goodwill or grace. It's not respect for us. It's respect for his own will and his desire to save us.
Can almost say in spite of us,
Yeah.
God still blesses us. So God is a respecter of persons to those who follow him. God will give us everything. Oh, sorry. Yes. Good statement. Thank you. Yes. God has given us all things that pertain unto life and godliness. How does he give these things that pertain unto life and godliness? That's in 2 Peter 1. Through his word. Yes. Through his word. So he blesses us because we follow him. And how does he bless us? He blesses us through his word. Us. Oh, yes, sir. It's good. You know, people say God works in mysterious ways, and it's true. But it's also plain for us to see God. Well, that's in Psalm 36. In all my years, what is that? Psalm 36 or 37? Yes, 37:25. I have been young and now I'm old. I have not seen the righteous forsaken, nor seen his seed begging for bread. God will take care of his own. God will take care of his own. And we can trust in that providence of God. Even and especially in the worst of times, in direst worst of times, God will take care of us. How comforting a thought. Those who are obedient, God will take care of them. But this also kind of walks into the idea of the goodness and severity of God. If we don't obey him, well, we'll find out. We're going to get the tail end of that, the severity of God, if we don't obey him. But nonetheless, he is good to all. It's a weird way to say it. All right. God does... Okay, that's what I was saying. All right. He is faithful to those who follow him and who are obedient to him. But God's respect does not prevent the harm and the testing of his sons and daughters. I'll say that again. God's respect does not prevent the harm and the testing of his children. Hebrews chapter 12 talks about that. If you would go and turn to Hebrews chapter 12. You know, Hebrews chapter 12, it opens up saying, since we have, I'll go and read it. Therefore, seeing as we have, that we also compassed about with such a great cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and sin that doth easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. And where it starts, let me see where I put in verse 5. And ye have forgotten the exhortation which speaketh unto you as unto children. My son, despise not the chastening of the Lord, nor faint when thou art rebuked of him. For whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth, and scourgeth every son whom he receiveth. I can imagine someone picking up this Bible, or picking up a Bible and reading that verse and saying, man, what kind of God are you following? He flogs them. Flogs them. Disciplines them. Yes, ma'am. That's the idea there. In verse 7, as we continue this thought of, what kind of God are we serving, as we continue and finish up with the thought of the providence of God in power, or the power of God in His providence. He will take care of us, but He will test us. Now, He won't tempt us, but He will test us. He will try us, and He will discipline us. Verse 7, if ye endure chastening, God dealeth with you as sons. For what son is he whom the Father chasteneth not? Which, by a show of hands, who is a parent here? I won't raise my hand, but okay. All right. I mean, how many times have you? Well, I won't ask that because you probably won't count. Mom, you can't answer that. But y'all discipline your children. Y'all did it because y'all just love beating kids, right? No, it's because you just want them to learn. You want to teach them. You want to discipline them. God disciplines us. May not be directly. It may not be the way we imagine it. But God disciplines us. God is there for us. And that's the power of God in providence. As we continue on in Proverbs 13:24, that kind of continues on with the same thought of Proverbs 13:24. He that spareth his rod hateth his son, but he that loveth him chasteneth him betimes. So if you love your children, beat them. Following? Properly. Well, there you go. Oh no. So God will test us. He will discipline us, especially when we're going off the rails. Or at least I hope He does. If He doesn't, you gotta learn a little bit more before He will. Yes, sir. It's a good point. It's a good point. Elders, leaders in the church, sometimes even deacons, but elders as the overseers and shepherds of the flock, yes, they discipline, or they should, and they do discipline those in the church. But that's kind of jumping on into another discussion, but nonetheless, it's a good point. Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Well, I actually put it all the way to verse 13, but as we continue reading in Hebrews 12, 9 and following, furthermore, we have had fathers of our flesh, which corrected us, and we gave them reverence. Shall we not much rather be in subjection unto the Father of spirits and live? For verily, for a few days chasten us after, for they, verily, for a few days chasten us after their own pleasure, but He for our profit, that we might be partakers of His holiness. Then naturally in verse 11, now no chastening is for the present seemeth to be joyful. I mean, when Mom says, oh, it's not going to hurt, or I love you, it's going to hurt me more than you, I'm glad I didn't voice my thoughts. Or when the doctor lies and say, "Oh, it's just an injection; it won't hurt." Oh no. There you go. There you go. That'll teach you some manners. You know, I'll take your word for that. But I hand back. Although I did think, I think this was like maybe 5 years ago. I was like, man, no, if we want to learn more about God, just look at parents and their children. And you know how disappointed you can be with your children. I know Dad does and Mom does. Not because of me. no, but you can be so disappointed with your children, and yet you still love them. You know you need to correct them. So it will hurt you more to a degree. That's what I was thinking at some time. At the heart, as Nana Joe says, at the heart. And think about God. He loves us. He wants us to do well, but He will discipline us. And sometimes, many times, it hurt Him. It hurts Him. Yes, ma'am. Mm. Yes, ma'am. Nice. That's right. That's right. If you never touched a burning stove in 50 years, and then you finally say, "Well, I wonder what that's like." That's right. I was trying to get a piece of egg out of a pan. It was hot, and I was like, almost got it. There was oil in that pan, and I was like, man, that hurts. I should probably stop. So that's just some thoughts on the power of God in providence in our lives. God is there for us. He wants to give us every blessing, and He wants us to be there. He wants to be there for us, to guide us. What greater way to guide us than sending His own Son? All right. So now we'll go to our second point, unless anyone has any questions. Now this is all just the first day and shooting it out there. So this piece of paper is for you to take home with you and look at, and then say, well, I don't exactly agree with this, but hey, I'll bring him back to him and tell him what for. All right. So now look at the power of God in our personal lives. Now this is a little bit more introspection. This is something I can't necessarily tell you. And there are some things which I can, but this is something more that you need to look in your life. You find out. And God's work in our lives, this is a matter of introspection, kind of like James says, if you're looking in the mirror and you forget what you look like after you turn away, well, what kind of introspection is that? It's It's not. It's just, oh, hey, yep, still looking good, or something along those lines. We often tend to think and forget the power of God in our lives. The power of God comes through prayer, through reading our Bible, through doing outside activities, things outside of the designated service or worship services. That's how we grow. That's how we should grow. Now, it's great to grow inside the building, but as soon as we go out and we stop growing, what's the point? Especially when there's only 2 days to come to services, to have worship. Sometimes there's a ladies' Bible class or a Bible class for men, or men's day or men's get-together, or whatever the case may be. But what's the point of coming to worship if you're just going to leave and forget for 5 days or 4 days? Depending if you come on Wednesday night or not, but I know Jason comes on a Wednesday night. So, again, the power of God through prayer, through Bible reading, and personal growth outside of the designated worship services. I was talking with a man, I was like, well, what in the world am I going to preach? Or I was kind of asking him, what am I going to do for this class? And I was calling him, and he's like, well, just look at Matthew and Ephesians and James. I mean, James right there. If you want to learn about practical matters, just look at James. And y'all, from what I've heard, y'all just went over James. Y'all went over some points about it or something along those lines. So you'll find that there's plenty of application, and it's practical application. It's the book of practicality, so much so that even people who don't like the works-based or the works that we have to work say, well, you don't even need that book. Just faith without works doctrine.
There's really no way to give practical application until you sit down and think about it yourself. Because you can't tell me how to apply everything in my life. You can
That's right.
give me ideas, but I need to sit down and think, how is this going to fit in my life, in my situation? And when you start doing that, you really start making a lot of progress.
It's true. And not everyone is the same. I can't say, well, I've been having this problem, and you say, man, that's exactly the problem I've had. It might be similar, but it's not the exact. There's always a twist and turns, and no one is on the same stage of faith, if you will. No one is. In fact, I was asking Carla a question. I'm like, do you think it's dogmatic about this? She's like, hold up, dogmatic? Yes. No one is on the same faith stage as another. You can be close, but there's always someone that's less. And a perfect example of not being on the same faith stage, and maybe even just coming for Sunday morning and Sunday night and Wednesday, is when the Hebrew writer is writing to, where is it? Yes, the Hebrew writer, I think it's in Hebrews 5, about, where is it? Of whom? Hebrews 5. Hebrews 5:12, maybe 13. But in Hebrews 5, chapter 5, verse 12, it says, well, let's go and say verse 11. Of whom we have many things to say and hard to be uttered, seeing ye are dull of hearing. Now, it could be that these people, I'm just saying could be, this is not hard evidence or fact, I'm just guesstimating or guessing. Could be these people are just coming for services and weren't doing any outside study. That's more of an application you can take from this. But if you're only here for Sunday morning, Sunday night, and you don't add to your personal lives throughout your week, you might become like this, but dull of hearing. In verse 12 it says, for when for the time ye ought to be teachers, ye have need that one teach you again, which be the first principles of the oracles of God, and are become such as have need of milk, and not of strong meat. For everyone that uses milk is unskilled in the word of righteousness, for he is a babe. But the strong meat belongeth to them that are of full age. So what's the... Oh, yes, again. Yes. God expects this of us. He expects us to grow. And I was again talking with Miss Carla, and I was like, the topic of a Christian, the point of, can't remember the exact point, but she said, when you become a Christian, that's your all. It's like eating and breathing. You don't think about it, you just do it. It's you. It becomes a part of you. It's like you're trying to grow a beard. You don't try, you just one day you got some fur there or something. It comes naturally, or it's supposed to. And excuse me. So again, the power of God in our personal lives. The power of God in our personal lives. Well, this is where I was going with that. When I was talking with that Jamaican friend, he said, just look at Jesus. The examples that which he set forth. How many times did he say, ye have heard it said? Or, yes, but I say unto you. Or how many times have we heard it said, ye have heard? How many of his ye have heard statements did he make? Why did he make those statements? Or why did he make the statements, he that hath an ear, let him hear, in Revelation? That one's a little bit more slap to your face, kind of evident. He wants us to learn. He wants us to learn. And many times he pleads for us to learn. And we do God a disservice if we don't try to learn. Yes, sir. That's right. I almost want to see Joe with just riding a mule one day. I'm like, what is he gonna do? All right. So the greatest way to understand the blessings, the power of God in our personal lives is to enforce what Jesus said. Ye have heard it said, do this, but I say, do this instead. Paraphrasing. Bear with me. He wants us to think about what was given in the past, what's given now, and what is expected of us in the future. So, we need to go to Jesus. Yes, sir.
One of the things that has troubled me a lot, especially when I first started really studying politics, was the question, I wonder what I'm missing. Because I've grown up hearing lots of basics, lots of things that were, as we read in Hebrews chapter 5 about milk, really, lots and lots of sermons about baptism, about repentance, and about all kinds of things that are very basic ideas, and I missed a lot of what the scriptures were teaching beyond that, and I never heard anything beyond that. I thought, well, what am I missing here? Something, I know I had to be missing something, and that scared me. That forced me to ask a lot of questions when I was doing study. That's a real good thing to ask, I think.
That is. Especially, again, with that thought, not everyone is the same. But how many of us have had that thought? I know sometimes I'm like, well, I'm reading the verse, but what is this verse saying? I know if you ever read your Bible and you read throughout the same passage over and over and over, every time you read it, it almost seems like there's something new. Or something finally stands out to you and slaps you in the face and says, hey, I'm here. How many times have you overlooked me? Yes, sir. Going along that idea, in Romans chapter 1, just as we talk about the power of God, Romans 1:16 and 17, it's the power of God. I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is power of God unto salvation to everyone that believeth, to Jew first and also to Greek. It is, it's the power of God, the gospel. It's the power of God, and why should we be ashamed of it? Furthermore, why should we be ashamed of it? How many of us, especially as we were younger, were ashamed of the power of God, the gospel? I know I was. I know when I was in work, I was like, oh, this guy kind of knows what he's talking about, but I know he's wrong. How do I prove him wrong? First off, try not to say that. Try not to say, how do I prove him wrong? Try and say, how do I prove the Bible right? How do I show that the Bible's right? So the greatest power of God, or the power of God in our personal lives, it comes through growth. It is shown through growth. It is shown through our prayers to God. Now, prayers are another matter. Prayers are a whole different can of worms, especially as you grow older and older and you have a greater appreciation for God. I know Michael is shaking his head like this. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's good. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, I'm kind of new here, and I kind of forgot a lot of things. The second bell, that means I should sit down. Oh, no. No. Man, what about, okay, the third point right here. in our public lives, take all that which we just learned and try and apply it to yourselves. And I made some points in there about Bible characters. What would those Bible characters be like if they weren't faithful? Abraham, for example. What would he be like? And y'all can free to go. I'm just turning it off very slowly. Abraham, what kind of person would he be like if he was unfaithful? Very slowly. God would have picked someone else, but after giving him the promise and Abraham was unfaithful, what would he do then? How many more enemies of Israel would there be? Possibly. And sorts. And there's some other thoughts in there, but that's it.